Good afternoon, colleagues, industry members, management teams, HSE industry. Good afternoon and welcome to this forum on moving forward, addressing HSE challenges and opportunities in retail and wholesale. We are very excited to have you joining us, and we hope you will enjoy the session with us. And it's my privilege to also introduce our panel this afternoon. We are fortunate to have three thought leaders in industry that have joined us to share with us their insights and their valuable knowledge and experiences within the HSE environment in retail and in wholesale. So our panel this afternoon is Dr. Elriza Esterhuizen from UNISA. Dr. Esterhuizen has a long history within HSE. She is a well-known practitioner, but also a well-established academic. And Elriza, we welcome you to the panel, and I'm sure you feel quite at home because you work with us very often. Welcome, Dr. Elriza Esterhuizen. Then we have Mr. Wellington Mudena. Mr. Mudena is functions in the retail and wholesale industry. He's a HSE practitioner with a very good understanding of the environmental aspects relating to occupational health and safety within the retail and wholesale industry. And I'm sure you will agree with me that environmental is becoming much more prominent within this specific industry. So we also look forward to hearing from Wellington Mudena about risk in the retail and wholesale industry, as well as the environmental aspects that impacts fundamentally on the industry. And then we're also very, very privileged to have this afternoon in the panel, Mr. Kobus Keiler. I'm sure anyone and everyone in retail and wholesale know Mr. Keiler. He's been in the industry for many years, had very senior positions in the industry, Pick n Pay in particular. Mr. Keiler, we're delighted to have you on board, and thank you so much for making the time available to share your insights with us this afternoon. We might be joined a little bit later by Mr. Paul Nash. Mr. Nash is retired at the moment, but he's also worked extensively in wholesale and retail, also from a construction perspective. I am aware that there's some load shedding issues, but so we apologize for that. But nonetheless, I'm excited at this opportunity, and I would like to kick off the session this afternoon by saying that I've looked at the statistics, and it is a generally accepted fact that the retail industry is the third biggest industry and the third biggest contributor to the South African economy. But then also in the long term, the South African retail sales year on year is projected to trend around 2% in 2023 and 1.8% in 2024, according to econometric models. So we see that the retail and wholesale industry is in an interesting space at the moment, because firstly, we see tremendous growth as expected and forecasted by econometric models. But then again, we also see the current economy. We've been through unrest last year, specifically in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, which impacted very heavily on the retail and wholesale industry. And then, as we all know, we are all still recovering from COVID, which had a fundamental impact on the economy of the country and globally as well. So I would like to ask Ms. Wellington, in the current economy, and in an economy in where we see more and more companies going online, to what extent is HSE in the retail and wholesale industry still relevant as a career choice? Wellington. Elriza, maybe you would like to respond. Dr. Elriza, are you online? Hi, Wellington. Please proceed.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, looks like I've been speaking to myself for the last couple of minutes. Right. So in response to your question, Dione, although online shopping has, improved the experience of customers in particular, but HSC in retail and wholesale is still very relevant in the current online shopping economy. And that's because the retail establishments have extended their boundaries beyond just the physical stores. So in the past, you would go into a retail store as a customer to purchase whatever you need. And even as an employee, you are employed within the confines or the physical confines of any retail and wholesale establishment. But now, with online shopping, there are many people who are now employed to pick and pack customer orders, others who are now also employed as additional staff to make deliveries on motorbikes or vehicles, delivering the customer orders to their homes. So this presents even more health and safety as well as security risks to these kind of workers. Because as an HSE manager in the past, you only used to manage occupational health and safety related issues within your store. So now you have to then extend making these deliveries in this current online shopping environment. So there are way more risks now that are associated with occupational health and safety, in addition to the conventional slips, trips and falls that we are used to, the physical, chemical, biological, that are confined within the wholesale. So yes, HSE is very much relevant, and there are now more precautions and controls that employers now need to implement beyond the physical store itself.
That's very interesting, Wellington. Thank you for your response. I'm also Elriza, and please carry on. Elriza, Dr. Elriza.
Good afternoon, everyone. My apologies. Just when I started talking, our load shedding kicked in. It threw me out of the meeting, so my apologies for that. Yes, no, I do agree with Wellington. It definitely is not because we are moving to online shopping more and more. The health and safety risks are not less. I agree with him. It's actually more. And I think even now, after the post-COVID, or we're not really past it, but we're almost past COVID, I hope, it actually brought health and safety to the forefront of many people. So previously, many people didn't really put the spotlight on health and safety, but at this stage, the community that we are living in now is really, really putting pressure on everyone to actually comply with health and safety. And I think a lot of people weren't even aware of the risks involved, but now all of a sudden they are, especially now. So I think it creates a lot of pressure for us working in health and safety, but it also creates a lot of opportunities for us, because I think now is the time to actually market ourselves and to get people on the occupational health and safety standards where they actually should be. So that's actually all I wanted to add for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask both of you, Following on the previous question, I was privileged to attend an interview or an interview and a discussion about future HSE trends, and it was presented from a very European perspective, but I do believe it also applied to local conditions, where it was said that the field of HSE, which in the past always focused a lot on the organization itself, in the organization and in the plant and in the mine or in the construction site. But the field of HSE has now started to grow into also the impact of an organization on the community in which that particular organization is located. Would you agree with that? And would you say that that's also a trend that we see locally? And what is that? What is the impact of the growing field of HSE, specifically within the retail and wholesale industry? How does that impact on people in HSE roles in wholesale and retail?
So, if I can start, the wholesale and retail sector comprises of not only just the workers themselves. So customers play a very big and central role in the operations of any wholesale and retail establishment. In fact, they are the center of why a retail and wholesale establishment is there in the first place. So the community, going on a question, the community definitely is very important. And you, as an HSE professional, you have to look after the health and safety of not only the workers or the employees, but you're also looking at your customers who are coming from the surrounding communities. You're also looking after the health and safety of contractors who are coming to do all sorts of maintenance work within the building or the premises. You're also looking after the health and safety of delivery personnel, third parties who are coming in and out of your wholesale and retail establishment. So I certainly agree with that. Occupational health and safety goes way beyond just the employees alone. It's also the customers, and any other third party that is coming in and out of the building.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Keiler, Kobus Keiler. Have you joined us yet? I know you are experiencing load shedding, so when you do join us, please feel free to add to the conversation. Wellington and Elrisa, thank you for that. I want to move to the topic of environmental aspects, because I think that also relates a lot to the impact of the wholesale and retail industry on the community. So we know and we acknowledge that environmental factors are a critical component of the HSE equation. But do HSE managers in the retail and wholesale industry also need to address environmental factors, or would you typically find that this is the domain of perhaps a department that looks at sustainability in an organization? So environmental, the topic of environmental, is that something that falls in the portfolio of a HSE manager in the retail and wholesale sector, or is there other departments in an organization that would focus on environmental?
If I might answer that one,
please.
Or to start off with, Wellington, you're welcome to add or to disagree with me. I think at this stage, we are actually doing a lot of research on sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals. There's conferences being held on the SDGs and so forth. So I think we need to also take cognizance of that. Like I said, health and safety and environmental management is now at the forefront, and we are really pressured to actually comply and to ensure the safety and health and well-being of people, employees, employers, and you're right, the entire community, not only the people inside the organization, and yes, also the environment. I think that's also one of the things I'm actually at this stage writing a chapter on in entrepreneurship. And if you look at your social and your commercial entrepreneurs, they also need to take note of the community as well as the environment, and to make sure that everyone's needs are addressed. And we must also keep in mind that we are working with the lives of people. We're not working with numbers. So the moment something goes wrong, whether that be in the environment or in the business itself, warehouse or retail establishment, it doesn't really matter. it has a negative effect on the community as well. So we must keep that in mind. And just the second part of your question or the discussion regarding who should be responsible for the environmental part, I don't think personally that you can really split the two. I think it's really important that even if you do have a huge organization and you do have a health and safety manager and you do have an environmental manager, that they work together towards a common goal. You will see in many of your smaller businesses, and I work a lot in small businesses, we do community outreaches as well to small businesses. And I think in those businesses, obviously, your owner or the manager will be responsible for safety, for health, for environmental management, everything that goes with it. So I think we must also keep that in mind. It depends on the size of your organization and the involvement of your organization. Obviously, different things come into play the moment you start operating globally and not only nationally. So I think we must, just take cognizance of those factors as well. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. You see, the E in HSE stands for environmental management. So HSE managers in wholesale and retail, they can't divorce themselves from the environmental issues. And as Elriza mentioned, you see, your wholesale and retail establishment is within the community. So you also have a responsibility to look after not only the health and safety issues, but the environmental issues as well that affect the community that you come from. So although many retail establishments these days are actively discouraging the use of plastics, a lot of customers still purchase them. There's a lot more packaging materials that are used for online grocery shopping and so forth. So if not handled well, if you don't handle waste, particularly generated from wholesale and retail establishment, it can then become a problem in communities. We've all seen how the disposable masks from COVID have become a problem within communities. So wholesale and retail establishments need to look at things such as pollution. What are the aspects and impacts that, the environmental aspects and impacts do you have on the communities that you are within? So legally as well, it's also important to mention that it's important to comply with the environmental laws within any country. So as a retail establishment, you have to also comply with the environmental legislation. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Kobus Keiler, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
I think it's the environmental issues at Eskom that kept me away from the discussion so far. But thanks a lot for the opportunity. I have to, Elissa, I cannot agree with you more, with you and Wellington, with regard to the environmental side of the business. I found that in many of our retail, I call it retail companies, if you don't mind, we focus more, it's a more element that is studied by or that is applied by your buyers specifically. And within your buyers, you've got the strong support as well then from your ethics side of your business. We were running it for quite some time under the ethics banner. But I want to agree that it needs to be one separate structure within your organization, specifically in your retail environment.
Thank you so much for that. Kobus, I want to ask you, my background is more in the mining industry, and I'm hesitant to assume that everyone that's dialed in has got a background in retail and wholesale. So I want to ask you, what are two typical scenarios relating to HSE that people in the wholesale and retail industry will be confronted with? So what will a bad HSE day at the office in terms of wholesale and retail be?
The first one will start like this morning. It starts in a deli. 90% of retail challenges is in your deli area. because you work with oil, you work with heat, you've got electricity in that area. And then you might have somebody that decides that there's a problem in polony across South Africa, and then you have to respond. And so I think the first one I would critically say is the critical area is your dailies in your business every day regarding might call it the possibility of a fire incident inside in that areas. And then the next one in that very same area is also injuries to your staff. So therefore, one of the challenges that I've always encountered in the business where I've been in is specifically your 8.2 appointments in those departments, those high-risk departments. That's in my life, the first one. The second one that is also is your butchery areas. Now, many companies is moving towards outsourcing butchery. So therefore, pre-pack comes into your stores. But if you've got on-site butcheries, that is a major challenge. And it will be the same as the Delhi area. And then because we're talking about big warehousing these days, and in warehousing, you've got trucks that pulls up at the back of store the whole day. The more that we try to combine it, the more we actually do not do that, or we put the pressure on a few trucks and your rolltainers, the speed of your rolltainers that must be offloaded. And yeah, that's also a challenge. Rolltainers is a challenge because your packaging that comes from your suppliers, I think it will take still a long time that you have absolutely the correct weight, the measurement of weight on those rolltainers and the handling then thereof from those vehicles onto your back of store.
Thank you so much for that. So I want to ask you, if you had to appoint a HSE practitioner in the organization, what would be the 4 critical skills that you would want an employee to have? Say now, for instance, a practitioner, a supervisor in the retail and wholesale industry. What are the 4 key things that you would look for in the CV of a potential candidate?
The first one, are you now referring to the appointment of as an HSE yes. Practitioner?
Yes.
Or are you referring to a store manager? Because so HSE. So specifically, if I look at that CV, then I will have a look at shop floor experience. Shop floor, in other words, know the business, know. In retail, there's a saying, if you are not on the shop floor, you're not in the business. If you don't know your client, then you're not in the business. If you don't know your product, then you're not in the business. And if you take all those elements, then I believe that one of my success stories personally in the company was that when I joined the business, I was put on the shop floor for 3 months, from the back of store to the front of store, that you have to learn it. And as you carry yourself through your daily life, and you hear the challenges that you've got on safety, because on the one side, you've got your occupational health practitioners, specifically your nurses that you have, and you have to balance their responsibilities, balance it with the operational responsibilities of the business, because if you don't do the due diligence there, your business will fail. So I always look at that. Then the other one that is critical, I believe, that it is specifically nowadays, as Liza said, if you look at the challenges on environmental, what is the person's background in the environmental field? Might call it over the years. Does he have or she have practical experience? And then it all boils down to the basic Occupational Health and Safety Act rules. You know, has the person walked the floor with a checklist? The biggest success that I had in my 17 years is having a service provider that has got somebody that walks with new eyes onto the shop floor every month for 2 hours or 3 hours. Spend that time in that retail store, because the business runs in, now we must serve customers, we must get the product out to the customer. But then for that 3 hours, you had the ability to stop the store manager and the store management and say, listen, there's now a specific focus area. And the focus area is starting walking it, as we call it, a mule train in retail. So there's a mule train that starts, and that person must have that type of experience, because then he or she will add value to your business.
Right. Thank you for that very comprehensive answer. So, Wellington, you've now worked in this industry for several years. Talk us through how you were trained to obtain the necessary skills that Kobus have just told us about. So where did you go and study, and what courses did you do? How did you prepare yourself, and how did you continue your continuous learning path within the wholesale and retail industry? So talk to us about training in this industry.
I'm sure that's for Wellington.
Yes.
So academics is one of the most important things that you can obtain in any industry, because it unlocks a lot of opportunities for you. And it's something which I always try to tell a lot of people, particularly in HSE, that you can never run away from academics. So it's good to get a good academic background in the area, because it allows you to have knowledge, a broad knowledge of all three areas. Remember, HSE is very broad. So you need to understand occupational health. You need to understand workplace safety. You need a good understanding of environmental management. And over and above these, which are the abbreviations of HSE, you also need to be well knowledgeable on risk management. You need to know ISO management systems, and then the legal aspects of things. So you need to know the legislation that's applicable to your industry. So there's general legislation that's applicable to health and safety in general, your COIDA Act, your Occupational Health and Safety Act. Then there's some which is more specific to the retail and wholesale sector. So some regulations that are applicable in other industries are not necessarily applicable to you, to the retail and wholesale industry. So for you to really succeed, I'd say you need a good academic background. Thereafter, you can then build on that by having professional development courses that you get. Your professional development courses are, you go to maybe NOSA, nowadays it's called Safety Cloud. You start building on that prior knowledge by going for professional development courses, and specifically things like incident investigations, your HIRA courses. These build up on that knowledge that you have gained. So it's good. So from a personal perspective, I'd say get a good academic background, and then start building yourself by getting many professional courses on your back. They really help you to get to a first good understanding of the industry, and then thereafter, experience is the best teacher. When you're working day to day in any industry, this is where you really then see the practical aspects of it. So it's not theoretical anymore. You now actually begin to see where to apply all of the knowledge that you've gained in academia. That's when you then start applying it.
Right, thank you for that. So you've spoken a lot about the academic background, and I fully agree with you. My question is, where will you go to? So having been in the mining industry, I know that you can go and study, in addition to training providers like Safety Cloud, you can go and study a mining degree at any university in South Africa and also in HSE. But if I have a passion for HSE in retail and wholesale, where can I find an academic program, or either at the university or at a training provider like Safety Cloud, that speaks specifically to this industry?
So Safety Cloud recently launched a masterclass in wholesale and retail, and it is one of the best courses. If you look at the course curriculum itself, in terms of the design of the course, the topics that it covers, and the practical aspects of what it covers, you can then, I'd highly recommend that one. So at the moment, there are not that many institutions that offer such kind of courses. The only one that I've seen is the retail masterclass that's offered at Safety Cloud. So for one to qualify for that, you first of all have to do an intro to SAMTRAC. You then complete SAMTRAC. So you're going through a 5-day course, which is intro to SAMTRAC. You then do a 10-day SAMTRAC course. And then thereafter, you then get into this focused course, which is a 5-day, really practical and intensive course on wholesale and retail establishment. For anyone in the wholesale and retail sector. So you're building knowledge upon knowledge upon knowledge. And this course, the good thing about it is it's specific only to the wholesale and retail sector. So I would highly recommend that course. I don't know if there are any others that exist, but at this present moment, that's the one that I would recommend.
Elrisa, maybe with your academic background, what is your experience in terms of, customized content and courses for individuals that want to study and focus on retail and wholesale? What is available out there?
Okay, thank you. Yes, no, I do agree with Wellington. I think first of all, like he already indicated, we must keep in mind that it's really necessary, first of all, to learn the basics. And it will depend on an individual if you want to do a formal degree, or do you want to take short courses, short learning programs, which are offered by various service providers. Those can be accredited and non-accredited service providers. Then also you get your formal courses and degrees. But I think it's very important for a person that wants to go into the industry to decide, first of all, what exactly they want to do. If you want to get a formal qualification, obviously you will need to go to either like a Technikon. TUT offers safety-specific programs, VUT as well. And Stadio is another one that offers it, in addition to Safety Cloud that's already been mentioned. So it depends on what you want to do. If you want to do a short learning course that doesn't take up that much time, I would honestly suggest that you take one of the courses that actually specializes in retail and wholesale, like the one of Safety Cloud. If you want to do a more formal qualification, like Wellington already said, you will start with the basics. Like I can just talk from my experience at UNISA. Your basic diploma in safety management will indicate to you all the basics that you need to know on the entire, well, not the entire field, like Wellington already said, it's a huge field of study. So, but you need to learn the basics. If you don't know the basics, you're not going to be able to apply it in any industry, in retail, warehousing, or in any other industry. You will be lost. So we normally start with the more general course content, and then as you move up in the NQF levels, we start specializing. So at this stage, I think if you really want to go and have an academic qualification on a higher NQF level, like a master's or a doctorate degree in retail and warehousing, that is possible. We can offer that at UNISA as well. There's other institutions that you can also do that. But that depends. Like I said, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to get a working knowledge just to get into the sector, do a short course. Actually, I would suggest that you do as many courses as you possibly can. And I think, like Wellington also indicated, and Deone, you also mentioned this in the beginning, it's a continuous process. You never stop learning. Just because you have a doctorate doesn't mean that you stop learning and you now all of a sudden know everything. I know my dad actually at one stage said to me that the day he got his doctorate degree, he actually realized how little he knows. And I think we must all remember that. You specialize in a specific field or in a specific area of safety, so you don't know everything. And I think being part of a professional body also really helps. Like SAOS, they also advertise this event on their website. And that's normally where we get a lot of the information. We share that with our students as well. And then you can actually, we are registered for courses almost on a weekly basis, just to keep abreast of what is happening. And I think we all saw that, especially now with the COVID-19, there was a lot of new regulations that came out and it was constantly changing. So it's really necessary for you as a person, for your personal development, as well as for your development in a specific industry, to do as many courses as you possibly can. Many of the courses are now offered online, and some of them are actually recording, so you can listen it after work. You don't have to interrupt your workday to actually attend these courses. And yeah, I think that's also with regard to your qualifications that you want to work on. You would have to see what works for you. If you cannot get off work to attend a 5 full-day course, for example, you might look at shorter courses that you can do in the evenings. Some of the courses are actually offered after hours. I'm also work for other universities where we offer specific courses after hours, especially for the people working full-time, because the reality of life is most of our students at this stage are actually working people. They don't have time to go and take off work for a month or two to actually gain the practical experience that is necessary. But yes, I think on the job training specific courses, it depends what you want to do. I think it's on an individual basis. It would be good to maybe get a mentor as well. That is also something that I strongly suggest, is that you can actually talk to someone in the industry like Wellington or Cobus or Dione yourself as well. And then mining, then you can talk to that person, just find out from them what they would suggest that you do to actually get yourself to the level where you want to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Cobus. Wellington, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly agree with everything that she's, Elriza mentioned. As I have mentioned before, professional development courses, academic courses, on-the-job training is a combination of all those that can make a good HSE professional. There's no approach, which is specific to this sector. You just have to do what works for you, and it's a continuous learning process. There's no one who will ever know everything, particularly in wholesale and retail. One of the most challenging aspects of this industry is it's ever changing. You will never know everything. So continue to learn, push yourself harder and harder. Each and every year, try to get at least 1 or 2 more qualifications in addition to what you already have.
Thank you. Cobus.
Sorry, I just want to touch on quickly on what you said, Wellington. When you said Samtrack 1, it was just like a wow to me, because really what I saw when right in the beginning, we asked our people to go on the Samtrack course. So everyone believed that Samtrack is only applicable on, I call it, construction. Nothing to do with retail. And people came back with a wow. I could not believe it. And I have to congratulate the industry I'm now referring to the tertiary department and Safety Cloud. If you look at the current courses that is available that people can do, if I turn back the tables 10 years ago, with respect, we didn't have the access to this type of information. If you look at what is at the moment available, it's a wow factor. For specifically, it could be on job whilst you're there. You can just start with that new career challenge for yourself, and you can excel, because the higher you go up, tomorrow you think, and so many people have got inspired to have a little retail store there in his or her community. But they forget the minute that they walk into that little store, they are 16.1. And that is something that people do not think of. The minute that you start that business, in retail, you were 16.1. So what is your background that you have at that moment in order to ensure that you're compliant?
Elrisa?
Thank you. Yes, no, I agree with that fully. I just want to add one more thing that I think we must also not forget is that not everyone has the opportunity to enroll for formal courses or even for Samtrack or a course at UNISA or anything. So even if you don't have the money to pay for a specific formal course, there's still a lot of courses that you can do that are free to attend. So just look for them. If you put in the effort, and like I said, if you are a member of a professional body like SIOSH, you will be informed of courses that you can actually attend. There's a lot of training that you can do that won't even cost you money. And I think that's also important. We also indicate that too when we do the community engagement and talk to people. And most of them actually do work in the retail industry. Small businesses, like Kobus also now said, they start small businesses in their communities. And we are really trying to get them just to learn them the basics of occupational health and safety that I think many of those people starting businesses don't even realize that it actually applies to them. So we are really going back to basics, offering courses that it doesn't cost them anything to attend those courses, just to give them a basic idea of how to do a HIRA, what you should look for, and just to basically legal compliance as well. Yes, it's. I think it's important that we just keep that in mind. So if you don't have the money to attend a formal course, you can always start with the free courses. And as time goes by, you can get maybe employment at an employer that actually pays for those courses, because I think that's how most of us actually get our qualifications, is you are employed by an employer that actually understands the realities out there and understands the importance of getting qualifications and attending training in your specific industry. So I think if you don't have a job yet and you are looking into the industry, start attending those free courses. You can make a whole list of them. Like Wellington says, do 2 or 3 a year or something if you can't do anything else. And you can put that on your CV, really. It's courses that you've attended. Many of the open, the MOOCs, the massive open online courses actually provide you with a certificate of attendance as well. So that also helps. It keeps you in the loop. It keeps you up to date on the latest developments. So you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money at the beginning. Thank you.
I want to steer the conversation in the direction of the format of training. Now Kobus, you in your capacity as being the VP of Safety and managing a large safety department, Wellington in your capacity as a practitioner, and Elrisa your capacity as an academic. Is there a place for online learning and e-learning in the wholesale and retail industry? Or is this simply the type of environment where training still needs to happen face-to-face?
My view, if I may start, Leonie, it's absolutely the beginning of something big if you start to refer to e-learning. And e-learning is the must. You know, a lot of companies in the safety industry started a few years ago to say, listen, what we're going to do is we're going to push down all this electronic, I call it inspections, the checklist, the auditing, all those elements. We saw so many times that failed. It failed dismally because it's always handed by the 16.1 to the next one. I'm now referring specifically to the small businesses. It is handed to some clerk just to tick off the necessary buttons. But every single company in the smallest business has got a laptop. I was just listening to Elisa now, and if you look at the opportunities that is there, if we look at the sad incident of youngsters that died in East London in that circumstances there, the video clips that I've seen is there's absolutely no safety measures, nothing. There was. So you can even go so far where you can say to people, you've gone now into your e-learning. What we want you to do is to get involved in your community and bring us a form of, I call it, recognition that you've been at small business and to advise people on what you've learned through your e-learning and show us where did you practically made a difference. So e-learning, absolutely yes, in my view.
Wellington, Elrisa, your view on e-learning?
E-learning is where the world is going. This is, I mean, technology, everyone now has a smartphone, well, most people. So moving to e-learning is not like, you're introducing something completely new to these people. But training always depends on the people that you have. I think it's good to always understand your staff. Have a training needs analysis first before you decide which training approach is applicable. So understand your staff first, look at them, talk to them, and as you engage with them, you can then see which training approach fits them best. So remember, we've got different categories of staff. We've got skilled staff, we've got unskilled staff, we've got people who have got access to resources such as laptops, such as the internet and so forth. So the training approach really depends on the staff that you have, on the resources that you have as well. It's best to first conduct a thorough training needs analysis and evaluate what you can and what you cannot do. It then informs the decision that you then make. So if you feel that it's best to do in-class training, it has to be the best approach to use for that specific group of workers. At times, I've found that mixing it up also helps. So sometimes it really depends on the actual course itself. For incident investigation type of professional development courses, it's good to have your staff to actually go in class and attend a class where they are taught physically how to actually conduct this. Your HIRA, hazard identification risk assessments, it's also good to have them actually attend in-class training. Then there are other sort of health and safety related courses which are, easy to do. These ones you can go for the e-learning option. So try to mix it up if you're a health and safety professional. Don't have a one-size-fits-all approach to training. But more importantly, as I mentioned, understand your staff, talk to them and engage with them. See what they are comfortable with doing, and don't ever force a training approach on them. Some people are also very reserved. They may go to an in-class training and come back and you're asking them, what did you learn? And they don't say anything really. But it's because of the approach that you use. You force them to go to this training course. They really didn't like it. They would have preferred to do it online. So by engaging with your staff, you can then pick out which is the best approach to use, but try always to mix it up.
Right, thank you for that.
If I might just jump in here, I agree with you, Wellington. Yes, at UNISA, we also follow a blended approach to learning. As you know, UNISA has been doing online learning for many years. So, but we still have a blended approach. And at this stage, because everything basically moved online, we don't have any written examinations, for example, anymore. But with the new structure of our modules and at other institutions as well, it actually allows for interactive learning. So I think it also depends on how the course is actually structured that you are doing. So even though we teach mostly online, we are available, and we sometimes do give classes face-to-face or online classes that people can actually talk to you. It also depends how you structure the course. So if you have an assessment that you actually ask people to practically apply what they've learned, I think that is really important that we keep that in mind, even if we do e-learning, which is really convenient for most people. But I do agree with you, Wellington. We do have students that can't always attend online, and we do have to make provision for them as well, or prefer not to do online courses. But yes, having a practical application of the theoretical knowledge is really important. So, for example, one of the assessments that we have is we do an incident report. We can teach people the theory of how to actually do that. But what we do in one of our assessments is we actually we give them an example, we give them a case study, and we give them an actual incident report, and we ask them to fill it out. So, and then we assess them on that. So even if you do e-learning, you can still have a practical component in those classes. And I think we must just keep that in mind, that I think e-learning creates a lot of opportunities for many people that previously wouldn't have been able to attend any training, that now have the opportunity to do so. But yes, we must really focus on getting people to actually practically apply what they've learned, so that it's not only theoretical knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So we've received quite a few questions, and I'm going to try and cover as many of them as possible. The first one is, how are merchandisers and rack packers, which are contractors or employed by the supplier, managed in the store HSE program?
Should I answer it?
Yes, please.
It's quite an interesting one. It's quite an interesting one. See, what is it? We've tried over quite some time. We've tried. It sounds like somebody that is really sitting inside the merchandising environment in South Africa. The fact is that we should go out as retailers, and we should only hire merchandising companies that can prove that they've got a safety program, occupational health and safety program in their curriculum before they put somebody on the shop floor. That's one. Secondly, with that is something that we've started some years ago at Woodmead example, where we did an e-learning program on site where we walk the people through the site after hours in order to do specifically to see what it is that is your tools of your trade that you must use for merchandising, and what is, if an incident occur, how you must deal with it. The reality is that so many people forget about this 37 tools. And my view is that we should ensure that everyone that is in that industry, in the merchandising industry, that it should be compulsory. That you walk in, if you walk into any retail store, your staff, that critical people that work on the shop floor, those is the people that needs to have, each one of them should have a very short course that they've done, that they can produce and say, I've been trained in retail. I'm a retail merchandiser, and this is my qualifications to be a retail merchandiser. So I know safety.
Thank you. So there's certainly best practices out there, and so thank you very much for that response. Further question, will International Diploma in Health and Safety Management, NEBOS IDIP, be of value and something to consider? Wellington, would you like to respond?
Certainly. NEBOS is one of the best courses that you can ever do, regardless of whichever industry you're in. So whether you're in retail and wholesale, whether you are in mining, in construction, in manufacturing, it really doesn't matter which industry you're in. The good thing about NEBOS is it teaches you really the fundamentals of occupational health and safety. It teaches you skills that are transferable to any industry. So I will agree with that and say, yes, certainly NEBOS is a great course to attend. But unfortunately, NEBOS is very expensive. It's not that many people that can actually start, even just the IGC or the diploma itself. It's not that many people that can start that kind of course, but it's well recommended, and it's got transferable skills which you can use in any industry.
Elrisa?
Thank you, Dani. Yes, now I just want to add on to that. I think from an academic perspective, you must just remember that if you do an international qualification, you will need to get SAQA approval for that before it will be recognized at the universities or institutions in South Africa. But yes, no, I do agree with Wellington. The qualifications that you can do, international qualifications, are very, very valuable. I did one myself, not NEBOS, I did another one. But yes, I had to get SAQA approval for that before it was actually recognized at the universities in South Africa. So I think besides from the cost, do your homework before you decide to enroll for an international qualification, and just make sure that the learning outcomes and are actually similar to those of a South African qualification. So if you want to go that route, it's fine, but just keep that in mind, because I know some people did courses and then it's actually not accredited. They come back to South Africa with those qualifications. They want to further their studies and it's not accepted at the university. So I think just, like I said, do your homework prior to enrolling for an international diploma. I'm not talking about NIBOSH. I think that one will most probably be fine. I'm just talking about in general, just make sure that you don't waste money doing a qualification that are not going to be accredited by SAQA. Thank you.
Certainly, and I think that's a very valuable comment for everyone that is considering doing a great course like NIBOSH. Elrisa, here's another one that that's got your name on it. The question is, with UNISA Health and Safety Diploma, do I still need to do intro to SAMTRAC or can I move straight to SAMTRAC?
Okay, I think, yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think actually it goes the other way around, because what we normally get at UNISA is people do SAMTRAC and then they want to get credit for the courses at UNISA. This now comes down to the NQF levels. So Dione, you will be in a better position to actually respond to this one. I'm not sure the introduction to SAMTRAC, SAMTRAC I think is your NQF level 4-5, if I remember correctly. Unfortunately, at UNISA, we cannot give credit to students for if they've completed SAMTRAC on the health and safety, what's a diploma on occupational health and safety. We can't do that due to the NQF level. So that's why I'm saying it depends what the person wants to do. And also, I think you must keep in mind the notional hours. I'm getting technical now, but that depends on the amount of time it actually takes you and the effort it puts into a short learning program. So many times, I mean, if you just think for yourself, you can't take a 1 or 2 day or 5 day course and try and get credit for an entire year. For a year course at UNISA, it's not going to be accepted. So that is also, we must keep that in mind. But like I said, this question is actually the other way around. You will most probably do your SAMTRAC introduction to SAMTRAC first before you come to UNISA for the actual formal diploma. Not that I'm encouraging people from doing SAMTRAC, don't get me wrong. It's just, it literally goes, it's about the NQF levels and the notional hours that goes with those types of qualifications. Yes, so I think that's, like I previously said, it's on an individual basis. It depends what you want to achieve with your qualifications. Just, yeah, keep that in mind. Okay.
Well, that brings our session to an end this afternoon. I think we still could have carried on for at least 2 hours. I want to thank our panelist, Mr. Kobus Keiler. Kobus, thank you for bringing your wealth of experience to this discussion. Wellington, we know you and have worked with you as a practitioner, and you've also been very instrumental in our retail service offering, which is on the market at the moment. Elrisa, you've always also been very instrumental, and we work with you on an ongoing basis. So you see the close collaboration between Safety Cloud and the academic institutions. And then to each and everyone who attended this session, thank you so much for spending time with us on this Friday afternoon. If you have follow-up questions to either of the panelists, you feel free to contact me, dione.botha@safetycloud.co.za. If you want more information on our HSE SAMTRAC Masterclass in Wholesale and Retail, it's a fantastic course, then please feel free to reach out to us. And if it's a long weekend for you or just a normal weekend, please go and support the retail industry, go to the shops and be safe and make the work of our HSE practitioners in the retail and wholesale industry enjoyable experience. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely weekend. Be safe. Bye-bye.